So guys, I've recently stumbled across a case that has stumped some of this nation's greatest detectives surrounding some damn thing called virtual reality. If you ask me, regular reality is already bad enough. Now, I'll admit that after flipping through the case files, the VR is undoubtedly an amazing piece of technology that has allowed for folks to experience video games in a whole new capacity. Not that I'm impressed or nothing, but still, I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but undoubtedly, something is missing. You see, on paper, all the pieces are there for VR to have gone mainstream, as they say. The flashy games are there to an extent, as well as the ever-evolving and improving headsets, as well as the technology needed to circumvent the need for high-end PCs. But still, something is missing. Something is preventing VR gaming from achieving what is undoubtedly the most important aspect of any entertainment platform, and I'm here to figure out what that is. Welcome to the simulation inside the simulation. I am Detective Too Damn Golden, your VR Voyager, and today we're going to talk about a subject that both VR gaming and I are currently working on improving. That is, of course, retention. But before we get to that, I guess there's only one question left to ask. Who the hell am I talking to? So today we're going to open things up with the cold, hard facts. While it is quite impressive the rate at which the number of people who own a VR headset has ballooned over the course of the last 6 years, as we all know, sales does not a successful piece of technology make. I mean, what good is a new piece of technology if nobody uses the damn thing? Those damn traffic lights are just a passing fad if you ask me. While concrete numbers are hard to come by surrounding VR retention, the digging and investigating that I've done has led me to believe that between 8 to 12% of VR owners actually use their headsets monthly, which in my opinion is validated by recent statements courtesy of Meta's Vice President for VR, Mark Rapkin, recently saying that, quote, "We need to be better at growth and retention and resurrection. We need to be better at social and actually make those things more reliable, more intuitive so people can count on it." This, of course, succeeded Mr. Rapkin acknowledging that the Quest 2 is struggling to keep new users engaged, stating that, sadly, the newer cohorts that are coming in, the people who bought it this last Christmas, they're just not as into it or engaged as the ones who bought it early. Now, by looking even closer at the limited set of data that we have to go off of, the monthly Steam charts, we can see that the overall usage of VR's headsets has dropped significantly over the past couple of months, dropping 1.8% in total since January of this year, or losing around 47,000 monthly users in the process. This, again in itself, is a very limited set of data to operate with, as it does not count PSVR 2 or standalone users, but when you couple it with commentary from insiders such as VR writing legend and former lead advocate of all things VR for Valve, Chet Falazek, who indicated that the Quest monthly users are still below 10%, or a recently conducted research study indicating that only 5% of Gen Zers who currently own a VR headset use it daily, with only 18% of these teens using it more than a few times a month, which, for context, is a particularly important study due to recent reports coming from Meta HQ, courtesy of Wall Street Journal reporter Salvador Rodriguez, that indicate that these teens are precisely who Meta is targeting, as they look to grow weekly retention on Horizon's world from a purported 11% to 20% by the end of the year, in addition to growing the 200,000 person player base to 500,000 by the conclusion of the first half of the year. Which in my humble opinion is a tad bit over ambitious, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see where the cards may fall. But now that I have the facts, I've been able to put together at least a rough outline of some of the data that should bring me closer to cracking the case of VR's retention problem. You see, VR's retention is hovering between 8 to 12%, and I'm inclined to believe that it's on the lower side, but we'll split the difference and call it 10%. The VR industry, while growing, is stagnating at the moment. Teens and young adults are the new primary focus of the VR industry. With this admittedly scarce information in mind, I decided to shift gears and instead focus on the most important aspect of my investigation, figuring out why the hell people are leaving in the first place. My investigation had taken my case from assessing informational data to hitting the streets and touching the people themselves.
God knows I hate this part of my job.
I was looking to figure out why people simply weren't staying in VR, and the responses I received actually weren't very shocking at all. The primary two responses when VR owners were simply asked, "Why have you stopped playing?" were, well, simple: lack of content offerings and the overall user experience. In fact, according to my recent studies, 46% of respondents cited one of these two factors directly impacted their hesitation to adopt or continue to adopt the technology.
And especially when it comes to the user interface issue, I definitely have to agree.
You see, with so many different shopping hubs for VR gaming to accommodate the several different headsets on the market, it can oftentimes be clunky to navigate to various storefronts, particularly on Steam, where the VR offerings are hidden away into a couple of innocuously placed tabs on the website. And whether being reality or not, the perception of VR is that outside of a few standout titles, most people see VR as the home of the tech demo or cheesy app-lag project.
Which is the correct shit in my opinion, but still.
You can't fight the facts. Digging deeper into some of the factors hindering VR's wider adoption, I came across a series of surveys and data caches that suggested that a critical component of VR itself is actually hurting the market. You see, the key selling point of VR gaming is the ability to be, well, directly in the game, right in the thick of the action, fully immersed in the world and environments that the developers provided. But then again, when a purported 57.8% of VR users reported that they have encountered motion sickness in some capacity, well, it doesn't exactly help to sell the technology to the masses, especially in conjunction with the fact that almost 14% of these users report very frequent motion sickness at that. I mean, how can people be expected to adopt a technology that they can't even use without being sick? Even if an individual was or is interested in trying out this new technology, the motion sickness undoubtedly would dissuade them from continuing their voyage into VR.
Now we're getting somewhere.
But still, I knew something else was missing. I knew that there was something else preventing people from jumping into the world of VR gaming. Something was stopping gamers from connecting with games in the most intimate level possible. But what was it? I could not for the life of me figure it out.
Imagine me, Detective Too Damn Golden, the world's greatest gaming detective, not able to solve a case. I couldn't even fathom it.
But then it hit me.
What is the most basic component for consumers to consider when deciding on whether or not to purchase a new item?
The price. You see, VR gaming has notoriously high cost of entry, as historically it has required not only a high-priced headset, but also the need for a relatively powerful gaming PC or PlayStation 5 in the PSVR 2's case to even begin to hop into the realm of VR gaming. Then throw in the cost of games into the mix and you could easily see a scenario where you have spent between $1,500 to $2,000 just to get started before considering things like more comfortable head straps, controller grips, battery packs, etc. that one may find themselves needing to increase their overall enjoyment during their time in VR. It was at this point that I knew I was close. I just needed to put the pieces together, and then just like a puzzle, the picture would become clear.
Finally, I think I've got it. Consider this case cracked.
So now that I have the facts and I've touched the community itself, it's time to provide some good old now fashion solutions to VR's biggest problem.
Starting with addressing the perceived dearth of content offerings in the VR space.
The introduction of more ports of older flat games to VR would do wonders for the current VR gaming ecosystem, with No Man's Sky and Skyrim being shown massive community support. And that's before we even mention the Quest's fastest selling game ever, the Resident Evil 4 remake, being regarded as one of the best VR experiences out there.
I mean, imagine a world where classic titles like Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Uncharted, Left 4 Dead, or Batman Arkham Asylum were released in an official capacity for VR players.
They would eat that shit up. This is something the VR gaming space desperately needs, and I think it could serve as a catalyst for not only holding the attention of new adopters, but it would also go a long way towards bringing back early adopters into the fray. Now, with regards to the user interface, complaints this solution is actually relatively simple. make the damn storefronts better. Accessibility and ease of navigation should undoubtedly be much more streamlined, especially when looking at the Steam and Quest storefronts. Now let's be honest, the menus are clunky, high quality content is often pushed to the bottom if shown at all, and in the case of the Quest store specifically, the bombardment of the review sections with referral codes has to stop, as this does nothing but drive away legitimate gamers from potentially being interested in a title due to no actual reviews for the damn game being present at all. The user interface is the first thing that people see. They just need to spend the money to make the damn thing right. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There is absolutely no reason for massive corporations like Valve, Meta, or Sony to have such horrific storefront experiences for VR gamers. And that's a sentiment that goes double when we talk about the damn motion sickness. Developers need to do their part by building out a wide range of comfort settings within the games themselves, whether this is via the adding of a teleportation locomotion option, allowing gamers to use a vignette, or in the case of the PSVR 2, don't allow for the full brightness of your OLEDs to surpass the capabilities of the hardware to account for motion blur. These headsets and games need to be developed with motion sickness reduction at the top of the respective priority list, as once again, how can people be expected to adopt a new technology that they can't even use without it making them sick? Really? Now, on to the big daddy issue of all of them, the prices. Now, this issue within itself is a bit more difficult to tackle, as it's a multifaceted issue, right? With multiple things that we have to take into consideration, so it's not as simple as slashing prices directly across the board. VR technology, while expanding at an ever-increasing pace, is still in its relative infancy, and as such, the costs associated with research and development are still astronomical to say the least. But at the same time, a lot of current VR offerings do feel like they are priced too high for what the player actually gets, thus creating a powder cake situation where gamers feel like these VR corporations are squeezing them for every dime, as opposed to at least putting on the facade of caring about the quality of experience. Which I mean...
Legs.
So then, what is the solution to what is quite possibly the biggest issue surrounding retention in VR? A gaming subscription service. Think about the success that Microsoft has had with its Xbox Game Pass subscription, which boasts over 25 million subscribers as of me writing this, or Sony's unveiling of their competing PlayStation Plus premium service. This is clearly the direction that the gaming industry at large is trending towards. And while it's true that not all industry trends are necessarily positive things, just look at loot boxes and the need to make every damn game a battle royale and or a games as service title as proof of that. The subscription-based model is absolutely perfect for virtual reality gaming. Think about it. For a monthly fee of say $10 in the Meta store, you'd have access to hundreds of titles including all the first-party games produced by studios owned by Meta, such as Onward, Asgard's Wrath, and VR's highest-selling title, Beat Saber. Combine this with the ability to pop in and out of a litany of indie and AA developed titles, and suddenly you create an environment where the players feel like they are getting much more value than they currently are. Sure, I may not have liked Robo Recall, but that's okay because games like Deism, Blade and Sorcery, or Resident Evil 4 are right there to jump into. This, in conjunction with the addition of more flat to VR ports, enable these VR studios to take more time on crafting these grand scale adventures due to less pressure from the VR community to deliver more games quicker, which in turn allows for higher overall retention due to gamers feeling like they have a diverse and robust gaming economy to dive into, and ultimately leading to wider adoption due to word of mouth alone, pumping more money into these companies to produce better games, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the damn day, gamers want games. Surprise, surprise. Case closed.
All right, folks, so that just about wraps up today's video. If you guys enjoyed our little, detective noir vibes that I had going on here, please make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe, all those good things, guys. It really does help me out. And you guys have been really awesome at doing all of the above the last couple of weeks. The channel's seen some amazing growth. So I wanted to just take this second round of applause for you guys. Tell you guys thank you. I'm just going to keep working on putting out the best content I can for you guys. Going to work on getting a little bit more frequent with the uploads, but I never want to sacrifice quantity for quality, right? Other than that, guys, thanks for watching. As always, I am Too Damn Golden, your VR Voyager, and thanks for joining me in the simulation inside the simulation.